Hello and welcome once again to another World Cup special here on France 24. Argentina are into the round of 16 of the World Cup after breezing past Poland 2-0. But despite the loss, the Europeans still head through against France. That is France heading through against Tunisia. To go over all the action, I have once again the pleasure of welcoming Eurosport's journalist Ruben Slachter. Ruben, thanks so much again for joining us.
Thank you.
But first things first, let's cross over to France 24 editor Simon Harding, who was at Stadium 974 to witness Argentina's victory. Simon, they've come back from that shock 2-1 loss to Saudi Arabia in the opening round, Argentina. Finally, it looks like they're finding a bit of form. Are we seeing the real Argentina?
I wouldn't say we're seeing the real Argentina. I wouldn't say that we're seeing the Argentina that won the Copa America or the Argentina with the flair and possession and speed that we've been accustomed to in the past. Much like this game, they made it difficult for themselves. It was laborious at times and it was slow and they had to take the hard route to get the victory. Lionel Messi, who missed the opportunity to get one better on Cristiano Ronaldo, missed a penalty, or rather was brilliantly saved by Wozniak Szczesny, and then in the second half it was perhaps the fringe players, two unexpected players who got the goals for Argentina. First Brighton's Alexis McAllister, and then Julian Alvarez of Manchester City, who has of course the future of Argentina in his sights. Nonetheless, Argentina finished top, and if you look at the draw, it's not the worst draw for Argentina moving forwards. They will play against Australia in the last 16, where they are very much expected to progress to the quarterfinals. Nothing less would be a cataclysmic failure. And then, if I'm not very much mistaken, it'll be either the Netherlands or the United States. So potentially a very big and open route to the semi-finals, though I'm sure Ruben would disagree with that.
Ruben, obviously Simon's laid it all out there for you, but I just want to go back to Argentina a little bit. They've relied on Messi for much of their play, but finally we're starting to see some strikers coming through besides him. Are you convinced?
Yeah, I'm pretty convinced. I also think that it's a good thing that he now finally chose for Alvarez as their striker, because Lautaro Martinez didn't deliver until now. So I think that's an important choice. Argentina played well tonight, you have to say. What Simon says is correct. It was laborious at times. It was also because of Poland was only there to defend, and that was really disappointing because we were expecting Poland at least to show something, and now it was just Szczesny passing the ball to Lewandowski and then just waiting until it came back to Wojciech Szczesny again, who was excellent and is the only reason why Poland is in the second round. But altogether, Argentina will be happy because after that shocking first loss, they fought back quite well, I think, against two difficult opponents. And now what Simon says is right as well. Australia is an easy opponent normally, and then against the Netherlands or the USA, they will be favorites as well. So in the end, I think that they were really, really happy with how it turned out after that first game against Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely, turning it around. But still, the Polish team, despite not playing that well, they go through, and that's because Mexico couldn't find the goals needed to push past in the standings. Al-Tri went ahead, Henry Martin, and then Luis Chavez's magnificent free kick made it 2. But Saudi Arabia, against the run of play, found a goal through Salim Al-Dawsari. And that means at the end of the day, goal difference separates the teams. Mexico crash out and Poland go through. Simon, back to you. I just want to ask, in your humble opinion, did the strongest teams make it through Group C?
I think they did. It was a straight shootout it's a very complicated group. Saudi Arabia possibly played the most entertaining football in the first two games against both Poland and against Argentina, but there was a lot of naivety in Hervé Renard's side, which finally was fatal to them in the last couple of matches. Argentina had the strongest squad, and that squad and the experience in the squad, and of course one of the best players of all time, delivered for them. Poland had the best defence and probably the best goalkeeper in the tournament heading into the game today, and Szczesny, as Ruben correctly says, once again delivered. And Mexico were probably the worst team out of all of them. Defensively, they were quite frail. They didn't offer anything going forwards. Why Raul Jimenez, yes, he's come back from injury, but why Raul Jimenez didn't play more is beyond me, particularly in a must-win game where they had to score goals and he didn't start. So it's a difficult group to quantify, but I would say Argentina going through, it was nervy times for Argentina, but they were expected to go through and they got the job done and they're top of the group. Poland going through, for what they've showed, the Polish coach said at the start of the tournament, ahead of the first game against Mexico, I haven't got the weapons to play attacking football, so I'm going to play very reserved football, very pragmatic football, and see what we can do. In Zielinski and Lewandowski, they have, of course, fantastic players. That's what they'll rely on to get the goals. But first and foremost, it's a defensive, solid block. And today is the first game where they were penetrated and where they conceded goals. So on that logic, the two teams that deserve to go through did go through.
And Simon, just a quick word on the power of the white shirt of Hervé Renard. It was great to see him do well at the start. A quick word on him.
Well, Hervé Renard, everyone jumped on the bandwagon of Hervé Renard getting a fantastic result, which it absolutely was. I think that he personally will be massively disappointed of how it finished for his team. They, as I mentioned, showed naivety. They weren't clinical enough against Poland when they could have been, particularly in the first half. They missed a penalty in that game. Let's not forget Wozniak Szczesny, who's now saved penalties in back-to-back matches. So it's a question for Saudi Arabia and Hervé Renard of what could have been. He's a coach who's had plenty of pedigree. He's won the Africa Cup of Nations with Zambia, which was a huge achievement, with the Ivory Coast as well. It's perhaps time for him to go to a more well-established team and see what he can do with a little bit more expectations on his shoulders.
Thanks so much, Simon. Coming from Doha, that's Simon, our sports editor in Qatar. And obviously, Ruben, with those results, of course, we have our next round of 16 fixtures lined up very nicely. The first one we know, Poland finishing second. They'll take on France, who topped Group D, and that's despite losing 1-0 to Tunisia in Wednesday's earlier game. A stunning effort from the North Africans, but many questions for Didier Deschamps and his team, especially when they thought they'd equalised with just seconds left on the clock. Selina Sykes has more. She was at the Education City Stadium.
After impressive starter to this World Cup, Didier Deschamps decided to make some tinkering to test the depth of his French squad. He made 9 changes from the starting 11 that featured against Denmark, though France's B team struggled against an impassioned Tunisian side roared on by a sea of Eagles of Carthage fans at Education City Stadium. It was a lively start from the Tunisians, especially down their left wing. They tested Disasi on his debut in a French shirt and also his first time playing at right back. There were a lot of firsts, in fact, in the French defence, with Real Madrid midfielder Camavinga playing at left back. Also up front, Coman, Kolo and Guendouzi were given the nod, though they failed to create any concrete chances. In fact, France failed to have a single shot on target in the first half. It was the Tunisians who looked far more threatening, with Khazri looking very threatening up front. He had a goal disallowed for offside early on, and it was Tunisia's veteran player who got the goal that all fans had been waiting for, their first and only goal at this World Cup in the 58th minute. A great shot from him after Fofana gave away the ball in midfield, the stadium erupting into wild celebrations. Didier Deschamps then decided to throw on some big guns to raise the bar, with Mbappe followed by Griezmann later on. The Atletico Madrid striker thought he'd salvaged an equaliser for Les Bleus in the last minute of extra time, but it was ruled out for being offside. So a historic win for Tunisia in their first competitive game against France, though it still sees them eliminated from the competition. And despite the loss here this evening, Les Bleus have qualified for last 16 in the top spot, though there are some questions being raised over the depth of the squad for the reigning World Cup champions as they head further into the competition.
Selina just mentioned there that last-minute offsides rule against Antoine Griezmann, ruled out his 98th minute equaliser. Can you just explain why it was ruled out? The referee had blown the full-time whistle.
Yeah, well, first of all, they can come back to a decision with VAR. The only issue is now that they already started playing again, and then he blew his final whistle. And normally, if you follow the rules, that's a new situation, so you can't even come back to the VAR decision. Then you can even discuss the VAR decision, because was Griezmann offside? Yeah, he was offside during the first ball, but was he really participating in play? Okay, well, at the end, it's not really of that matter because Tunisia is not going through and France is going through. And to be honest,
It's the principle, though, isn't
it's the principle. And if you look straight at the rules, he shouldn't have disallowed this goal. Honestly, France deserved to lose today, but that's an whole other discussion.
A whole other discussion indeed, because of that so-called B team for France lining up. Well, we've talked so much about Les Bleus, but let's just take a second to mention the Socceroos. What a maximum effort from the Australian team to beat Denmark 1-0 and advance to the last 16 as the second team in Group D. And that's the second time the Aussies will be in the next round of the World Cup. It was all thanks to a 60th minute strike from Matthew Leckie. As a reward, they now face Argentina. But they did it against Ruben. They did it against a dark horse in Denmark who completely failed to deliver.
Denmark is the biggest deception of the whole tournament until now, because if you ask like 100 football experts who would go through in this group, 99 will say France and Denmark. Australia was not at all listed as a favorite to go through. So you have to give a lot of credits to them, not because their football is entertaining, not at all, to be honest, but it's a team. It's a real team performance with also a fantastic goalkeeper. We talked about Wojciech Szczesny, but Matthew Ryan is also a fantastic goalkeeper. And then they had one opportunity and it was straight in, and that was it. Denmark, no chances at all the second half. So yeah, you can't also say that they really deserve to go through. But it's incredible that Australia managed to go through. But it's also not that you can say that they stole it, to be honest.
But they did perform very well against Tunisia in that crunch game.
Yeah.
Well, the football does keep coming and coming. So much to look forward to tomorrow, starting with those absolute critical clashes in Group F. 2018 finalists Croatia, they head the group, but they'll be playing Belgium, who have so far flattered to deceive. Should the Red Devils lose, they could be out of the World Cup, and that's because Morocco sit tied with Croatia on 4 points, and the Atlas Lions have a chance of even topping the group if they win by a big enough margin against Canada. Then it's Group E in the later game, where Spain will go into their match against Japan quietly confident of grabbing a win. Not easy against the Samurais, mind. All eyes, though, will be on Germany's match against Costa Rica, with Hansi Flick's side needing to win while hoping for a Spain victory to have any chance of heading through. Ruben, Belgium, I just want to touch on them because many touted them, like Denmark, to get through with ease, and yet we've seen a almost disastrous campaign from them so far.
Well, we shouldn't forget that they have 3 points. They won the first game, but there's a lot of stories about trouble in the team, about players who don't like each other. Well, the De Bruyne-Courtois story is well known, but now there's also other stories. You could see already against Morocco that it's not going right with the team. It's now up to Roberto Martinez to fix it and maybe make really harsh decisions on who he wants to play. If you look honestly at Belgium and Croatia, I think that Croatia is just a better team right now. The names are still there for Belgium, but we've said it already before. It's the golden generation is now an old generation, and maybe it's time for them to change as well. But you never know. There's Kevin De Bruyne who will play, and Kevin De Bruyne can decide a match on his own. So it will be a fantastic match, and without forgetting Morocco against Canada, because Morocco will have the chance of a lifetime to go to the second round, which in my opinion they fully deserve.
A very winnable game that is for Morocco if they turn on the style against Canada. That's all we have time for here on this World Cup special in France 24. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon for more football.